The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
What's your tomorrow?
I do have a success story that I want to share, and I think sometimes people don't always recognize the rich experience that our students have when they attend our diverse high schools. It's extraordinary, and I received this email from a parent whose daughter recently graduated from East High School as a freshman at Notre Dame, and she said that I could share it with you, and I really want to, if we think about how this has prepared this young woman who is studying to be a doctor. And she said, the mother sent this email to me, and she said, I wanted to relay a story from my phone conversation with my daughter yesterday morning. As you know, she's a freshman at the University of Notre Dame. And she said, I recounted my daughter's conversation regarding a high school student whose parent had shared that her daughter had gotten a 5 on a U.S. AP history exam last spring, and it was posted on this high school wall called the Wall of Awesomeness. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And she said to her daughter, did you have a Wall of Fame in your school at East High School? You got a 5 on your same exam. And her daughter paused, and then she said, Mom, that's not what East High School is all about. East High School is about being the best you can be. My 5 was no more awesome than a child who's dyslexic who gets a 3 on the same exam. It's no greater an achievement than a kid who speaks English as a second language and gets an A on an English exam. For some kids, just showing up for math class every day for a month is an awesome achievement. That's why we don't have a Wall of Awesomeness at East. You can't, but those kinds of things, you can't put those things on a wall. And her mother said I could share it with you. It's Sophia Kiernan. So anyway, I think that really defines what often we hear about schools that we want to put letter grades on. This is the kind of experience that no letter grade can measure, and it has extraordinary impact on who this young woman is and where she will go in her future. I emailed her mom back. I said, she's going to make an extraordinary doctor because she will serve all and respect and value them. So anyway, that is my success story. I could share more, but that's the one I have for you tonight.
Very nice.
And I have no action items.
All right. Then we'll move to our Intercity Student Council report. I'll turn it over to you, Loki.
For high school news, in the district, each 4 high school will be sending FBLA members to the state competition in the process spring. For Provo High School, their chapter received the second overall for outstanding chapter behind Bayport High School. Casey Nelson, a wrestler, was named in the senior spotlight for his efforts on the Green Bay Cleveland East wrestling team. The Shopko Foundation donated $1,000 to Provo High School's home construction program.
I saw that.
Very nice. The Pro FFA received Leader of the Pack from the Leader of the Pack award from the Bay Beach Wildlife Sanctuary in recognition for the 10 years of the community service sanctuary. And at East High School on January 16th, East and Southwest girls basketball team participated in the Miracle Minute and $500 donated. Green Bay East has just received their first robotic team. It gives students a valuable experience in engineering and technology, and they'll compete in a robotics program, and they were sponsored by local community sponsors and Robotics First. Liam Ledford was named runner-up at the Mr. Tyler Town competition. And in Southwest High School, the Southwest Troyettes, their dance team won state championship, Division I for kick and Division II for pom. Letitia Howland became the Trojans' career leading scorer at 1,523, and I believe she's about to break the all-time Metro record as well. And Southwest Bailey Hanson was named Miss Green Bay Outstanding Team of the Year. And for West High School, West teachers Miss Eleanor Hins Radu and Mr. William Hins were selected teachers of the station in the first round of Golden Apples Award selection. Silent Night was held January 1st against East and West to end homelessness and hunger. And for upcoming events, the Junior Achievement Business Challenge is being held on February 20th. It's a competition where students run a business using an online simulator with help from mentors, local business leaders. And students have a chance to win over $4,000 in scholarships. It's a really good opportunity. The top place students can win $1,000 each. And that concludes my analysis.
All right, thank you. And we had I thought, very good meeting with the entire Intercity Student Council last Thursday. So that was a lot of good topics and a lot of good discussion. Yep.
I've been to many of those meetings, and that was easily one of the best I've attended in terms of intelligent observations and comments and questions. And I was really pleased. As I walked away from that, I just want to share that with you, share that with your group. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Next, we have our legislative liaison report. I'll turn that over to Mike.
Thank you, Brenda. The first item is the governor's proposed budget, education impacts. And I think everyone here is fairly aware, but I think the public may not be. But before I go into some of the issues in the budget, kind of set the table, the budget now goes to the Joint Finance Committee, which will have 4 hearings around the state. My understanding is one of those hearings will be in the Fox River Valley. I don't think a site has been picked yet, but wherever it is, I'm sure we'll be there. And I think it's going to be important for us to get other people in the community involved in testifying to tell our story. And then once Joint Finance Committee makes its recommendations, this year it goes to the Senate first and then the Assembly and then a conference committee. So I think I have some hope and others have some hope that there will be some changes made in the budget. I think some legislators in both parties have indicated that they would like to see some major changes in the budget. So we will see, but just a couple of things. When the governor gave his budget message, the initial, I think, media coverage said the funding would be flat because I think of what the governor said, that he wouldn't increase the revenue limits, but actually there's a significant reduction in the budget. In the current budget, there's $150 per student categorical aid that was added last time by the legislature. The governor eliminated that $150 million per student aid in his proposed first year of the biennial budget. So in effect, there is a $150 per student cut, which translates to a reduction of about $127 million across the state. And then for Green Bay, the reduction would amount to about $3.3 million. And I guess I'll stop there right now. Michelle, anything you want to add to that point?
You know, I think we just have to recognize the fact that we are going to have to manage through whatever it is, but every time you look at it, we are such a people industry, and so the resource and money goes to staff that support the students in the classrooms. And as we look to programs, we try to keep the harm away from children, but you know, our deficit is 3.3 million that we're looking at, and we're looking to figure out how to balance that and not lose anything for our kids. Right. And that's a real challenge as we keep going down the same landscape that we've been in the last several years for education and finance. Just at a time when we could be investing, it feels like we're not. We're disinvesting. Right.
So there's that piece.
May I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. I hope the public also spots in there where the governor's talking about having property tax And to me, it's such a farce. A $150,000 home, and it's $10 over 2 years, $5 a year that you save. I mean, you can't even get a Big Mac for that. So what does that matter to the average homeowner that has a $150,000 home? However, in the aggregate, you put all that money together, it could help the overall budget.
Right. Okay. A couple other points, voucher expansion. This year, there are, outside of the Milwaukee and Racine programs, there are 1,000 statewide vouchers. The governor's budget takes the cap off of the statewide vouchers and actually folds Racine into the statewide program. And a couple of interesting things, what that does, it gives priority to public school students. Under the current program, about 75% of those outside of Racine and Milwaukee taking your vouchers actually currently attend a private or religious school. This program would give priority to public school students, and one of the things it would do is that before, the vouchers now are taken off the top of the general school aids. The vouchers under the current proposal for the next biennial budget would be paid for by the individual school district. And if a student, if a student never attended the Green Bay School District, but if they live in the Green Bay School District, we would pay for that voucher out of our operating budget. So whether it's someone who just moved into our community, 4 or 5 year old, decides to take a voucher, never attended the Green Bay Public Schools, takes a voucher, we would pay for that out of our budget. Students who are open enrolled out of Green Bay, never attended a Green Bay Public School, attend a public school elsewhere under open enrollment, that money would come out of our operating budget. And I think Michelle can address because we've talked about a little bit about the staffing concerns and problems that creates, not knowing what your student body is going to be every year.
It's a moving target, and for those that you try to determine based on the numbers of students and the choices that students are making to provide the best courses and class sizes and everything. And I think the challenge that we have without knowing the cap is not being able to do any planning that's for sure. We could lose a significant number of students to a voucher, but the reality is they could be sprinkled out across grade levels and across our 41 schools. So there is no way to capture the money that we would pay out to do a cost savings and streamline our work so that it wouldn't be impactful on students. On the other hand, we're also faced in an interesting time with state statutes that we have to say when we're going to retain people or let them go. And that's in April. And it's very hard to guess what's going to happen because we won't know what the budget is until June. Would you say that's accurate, June? So we can't anticipate movement at this time, and yet, when it's coming right off the top of our district budget too, it's just a very, very challenging, difficult, question. And yes, today we talked about it. I met with our Chief Human Resource Officer, Jean Marsh, and Alan Wagner, our Chief Financial Officer, and we talked a little bit about that. How do you plan? How do you make sense out of it when there's no cap, and who knows what it means? We don't know what it means.
What's the timing? I don't even know the timing for when do we find out how many voucher students have left our district and what our
I don't know if
impact
it's,
would be?
the budget probably won't be adopted till sometime, maybe June, late June. I don't even know if the budget says how soon
people
They
can.
would have to
yeah.
notify us. I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't have
Well, I
an
mean, it
answer for
depends
that.
on the application process of families and when they approve them. I don't remember what the timeline has been the last 2
Look, I
years.
assume they're gonna be waiting because until the budget's adopted, people won't
Sure.
know if this is actually
Right.
gonna be the plan. So the budget's adopted July 1st, and this remains as is, then I imagine
The
the
process
floodgates
starts,
open.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
and then we're gonna have to try to
Yeah, I'm just,
figure
so
out
we may
how
not
to-
know
And
till
by that time, we've done our
September,
staffing.
August, September,
I mean,
right,
that's-
right.
Gene, right? I mean, we,
That's right, it doesn't mesh with the
right,
cycle of employment.
right.
Laid out by state statute.
That's required by state, right?
Yeah, so there's a little mismatch
Yeah, we're
there.
required by the state to
Right.
give all of our teachers notice of either extending their contract or renewing their contract, or if we decide that we have to do any kind of reduction in force, we have to notify all of our teachers by the end of April.
Right.
And so that's, by law, we have to do that, which makes this even more difficult.
Another topic, currently, there are charter schools in Milwaukee, are public charter schools outside of those in the Milwaukee area. The governor's budget creates a charter school oversight board at the state level to grant charter school authorizing authority to approve nonprofits. So there could be charter schools springing up in our area if this board approves them. And they wouldn't be like John Dewey, which are operated by this school district. They would be independent, similar to what's going on, has been going on in Milwaukee.
And this board would be comprised of who?
I think there's some, I don't know if that's, and I don't have that right now, I think there's some political appointments from both parties. If there's if DPI gets any appointments.
I think the challenge and opportunity with an independent charter is that as I dig through the research, I can't find the research that tells me that is the answer. Potentially in some areas, I think the Milwaukee superintendent said it well. It could be one thing that might work in one school somewhere. On the other hand, there is no silver bullet that if we all turned into private charter schools, every child would be successful. There is no silver bullet, and so that to me is a very simple solution to a very complex issue that has far more to do with the rootedness of children and the circumstance of their own lives.
And seeing how you mentioned Milwaukee, Darian Driver, who's the superintendent of Milwaukee, testified at the hearings that we were down at and talking about people taking a voucher. She said every year Milwaukee Public Schools get several thousand students back from the private and religious schools who take a voucher. Those schools keep the students there till the third Friday count. They get the money. Then they decide, well, maybe those students aren't a very good fit for our schools. They send them back to the public schools, and then they keep the money. They get several thousand of those every year. And I think that's another one of those things, is the voucher school keeping the money when they decide, really, we can't provide services to your child, and so why don't you go back to the public school? That's another concern.
And those
with that.
statistics exist.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's going on in Milwaukee for years. Andrew?
Do you have any thoughts as to why I would think it surprised me that there isn't widespread outrage over the keeping the money issue. Is it not well publicized enough? I would think people of a range of political persuasions might be offended by a group keeping the money and not doing the service. I would think that would offend both parties equally.
Reasonable people.
I would think so, but I have not heard a lot of outrage
I have
over
never
that.
seen anything in the Journal Sentinel about this. The only place I've ever seen this actually investigated was, you both were there.
Barbara,
Say that again?
go ahead. Is it,
It's the Wisconsin, no, I would never be quoting them. No, the Wisconsin Public Research I actually still have the paper at home. That's when they really explored this issue of the schools keeping the money. And the way that the legislation is now is that we actually, as you had said, we would have to pay, and then when it come back to us, we'd have to pay again.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
as
Right.
Andrew says, I don't know why this is not out there, because that is absolutely insane.
But then it's not even, it doesn't even strike me as a liberal conservative issue.
If you're
I mean,
not doing the service, why would you keep the money?
would be
Right.
likely to be offended that tax money is going to a group that's no longer providing.
Right.
The service.
If you're going to be pro voucher, if the voucher group educates a kid for a eighth of the year, then fine, they should get an eighth of the. It surprised me because it's such the concept is so, maybe it's so outrageous that people think there's something else to it.
I don't know why more people aren't outraged by that. I don't know if they're not aware of it. I mean, there has been some stories in the Journal Sentinel over the year, but people just aren't paying attention.
I haven't seen one of those about that particular issue. Maybe you meet closer.
Yeah.
I would speculate that most people think, oh, it can't be that many. It's a handful. But when it can be much more than a handful, it has an impact. Perhaps our local groups interested in taxes, now that Fund 80 seems to be not quite the same issue, could be involved with this.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that taxpayers group would be offended by that. All right, there is alternative licensure. There is a provision that would create alternative pathways to teacher licensure to allow a candidate with a bachelor's degree, quote, with real life experience, unquote, to pass a competency test to teach in grades 6 through 12.
There's a program in Chicago when I was there in the 90s called Teach for Chicago. And
It's like Teach America. It's
well, since it's called Allison Arnie Duncan, yes, that's right. And it basically takes people who have life experience. I knew a couple of Teach for Chicago teachers, but they got paid. There are various levels of being substitutes. So they got paid the highest level of a substitute while they taught, but they also took classes. So there was pedagogy as well as content. That is not the proposal here, though.
Right.
What I read.
right.
I personally don't have a problem with discussing this further. We do have some areas like technology and some others that we definitely are in a hard position trying to find teachers. But as you said, there's got to be something besides just being a teacher.
Right.
I've had the experience with maybe a handful of teachers who had been in various professions, went back on like a fast track to teach. And I'd say for the most part, they're all about half a step off. And it took them a while to get in the groove of what it really means to be a teacher. And I'm not saying they're bad people or unhelpful, but don't make the assumption you can automatically jump over what anybody can teach. That's just
I think one of the big things that students learn in education schools is classroom management. I mean, I think that's a big part of it, and I don't know how this would be addressed in this proposal.
Lesson planning,
You know,
reteaching,
right. There's. All right. This year is the first year of the Smarter Balanced Assessment, which is tied into the Common Core. I think the legislature and the governor figured out that they couldn't get rid of Common Core because it was a DPI initiative rather than a legislative mandate. So what the governor's budget does is get rid of the Smarter Balanced Assessment. It eliminates it after this year and instructs DPI to come up with a different assessment. So I don't know what's going to happen there. So after this year, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, according to the governor's budget, will no longer exist. Accountability, and this is probably one of the most concerning things. Schools and districts would receive A through F letter grades. That was the proposal in the Assembly accountability bill, which we testified against. It was not included in the Senate accountability bill, which we testified in favor of it. The governor's budget includes the A through F letter grades. Michelle, you want to address that?
Which part?
You know, I think that the piece, any good school accountability legislation where students have achieved and they're seeing significant gains in the state of Massachusetts, they have a wonderful accountability system that includes no letter grades, but levels of intervention. And they look at schools from high need of intervention, recognizing that the kids that come there may need more resource and support. They put resource into place, and the intent is to elevate all kids. And so there are no punitive pieces involved, but rather resources. And Massachusetts has perhaps considered to be one of the highest educational attainment, if not the highest in the country. And so I always look to see who has the best grades in terms of success of students, and, you know, is it a grade, whatever. And so then I looked also at New Hampshire, and a lot of the eastern schools do not use letter grades. They use resource and support. In Minnesota, they have centers for excellence, and Minnesota has seen some significant achievement gains as a result of their interventions. They are first in the nation on the NAEP test in fourth grade math, and they are third in the nation on the NAEP test in 8th grade math, which tells you that if you invest and support, you're going to get a different result. When I look to other states that aren't going down that road, that are using letter grades, I'm not seeing those kinds of results overall. I'm seeing things that are troubling. New York used to have letter grades. They've gone away from letter grades. You can now go online, and if the intent is to really inform parents, you can go online now. If you look up their State Department, you can put in an address, and it will tell you all the schools within 5 miles of that, and then you can actually click on any school, and within that school it tells you a lot of things about that school, so you can make a much more informed choice than a letter grade. If that software is available in another state, it's got to be available here too. So anyway, we are not in support of letter grades because we don't feel that it tells the story. We don't feel that students who are working hard should have a letter grade that doesn't characterize what they know. I don't think personally it's good for workforce development or economic growth in a community if you have a number of schools that are not doing well because they are persistently low test takers, which is different than perhaps what they know and can do. I mean, I think we can show examples of that. So that's my own opinion and platform on some of this, but there's a lot of research to support, I think, what that notion of about support and invest as opposed to punitive and disinvest and come up with the magic answer.
So I guess in summary, we will continue to work and meet with legislators and other people in the community and testify at joint finance hearing and get other people involved, and hopefully we will mitigate some of the damage in the governor's budget. Celestine.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you always for updating us and keeping us informed. You know, because I've been reading the reports, especially in the Journal Sentinel, very closely, and a few in the New York Times and the New Republic. Something that the governor actually said really upset me as a school board member. And that is, after Act 10, his flexibilities created the situation where we now have smaller achievement gaps, better graduation rates, better test scores because of the financial reforms of Act 10.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a school board member, the last 4 years, 5 years almost, as a parent, that is not how school districts make change, because a first-term governor comes and says, you don't have money, And now everything's going to be great with our core function, which is to teach students. You know, I haven't seen any pushback in the paper about that, and I just really thought that was really got my blood boiling. That is not how we have made change here.
Right.
We've been on this course for a very long time, and we have a long way to go. We all know what our challenges are and what our successes are, and it is not because of Act 10. So I just had to put that out there.
No, good.
Because that was really uncalled for.
And I'm going to just briefly touch on federal education legislation. You have some documents in your online. I was at the NSBA Advocacy Institute along with about 700 other school board members. And then we also spent a day on Capitol Hill meeting with our individual legislators. One of the things, it looks like this year for the first time in years, is that ESEA will be reauthorized. There's a good chance. We heard from John Klein from Michelle's old state, who is chair of the House Education Committee on his bill, and then Lamar Alexander, who is chair of the Senate Education Committee. So the document you have puts those two bills side by side and NSBA's position on reauthorization, and you can read that yourself. There are some things in there that NSBA has been lobbying against, other things that they see some positives in there. So it looks like that will be reauthorized sometime this spring. And then one other bill that I wanted to point out that it's a bipartisan bill. It's House Bill 551, a bipartisan bill that over a 10-year period would fully fund special education. IDEA. That when that bill was passed by Congress in 1975, it promised 40% funding of special education. It's never been higher than 20%, and this year it's about 16%. So that bill over a 10-year period would fully fund IDEA. So I think there's some hope in that. So, and I won't go into any more detail because you have all the information online unless anyone has any questions for me. All right, thank you. Then that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Next is district events. I don't know if anyone has anything to announce that might be going on in the district.
Something that's already happened. I was able to attend at Preble, the Hall of Fame induction, the Sports Hall of Fame induction the other night. It was a very nice event, and we could get included in it. What they do, and I'm sure they do at other schools too, they have different time periods from which they choose somebody from way back when and coach in different categories. And it was very nicely done, and it's impressive to be sitting there and listening to what some of these folks have accomplished, not only in the field but beyond that. And in any event, I just wanted to share that. It was very pleasant evening.
Right, thanks, Chris. Do you have something? You look like you're going to say something.
I'm thinking of, but I can't think of what now, so.
Okay.
Never mind.
All right, then we will move on to our system reports. First will be teaching and learning, facilitated by Katie Maloney.
Thank you, Brenda. We have 4 action items. The first, I move that the welding articulated credit as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
I move that the advanced placement physics 2 course as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Jeffries? Maloney?
Aye.
Franz? Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
I move that the field trip policy, paren 352, and field trip procedures, paren 352-rule, as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Jeffries? Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
And finally, I move that the procedures for management of student allergies, paren 1-Rule 3 as presented be approved.
Second?
Sandy?
Wagner,
Aye.
Maloney,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Franz,
Aye.
Jeffries,
Aye.
Blackout,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
And that concludes our report.
All right, you made it in under your 5-minute allotment, very good.
Thank you.
Next, we have organizational support that's facilitated by Chris Wagner.
Thank you. The minutes are included. No action items on the businesses. One point of information, Alan, would you mind coming to the table and just sharing with us what was in the paper today? The headlines talked about pension funds in the state being in trouble. That's the way it read. If you read through the entire article, you see what Green Bay is. And I think it needs to be on the table that people see that sadly in the paper when someone's at the end of an article. Many people don't read that way, and I want them to know where Green Bay is. So if you could amplify that.
Yeah, the unfunded prior service liability was back in 2004. And if you remember, the WRS payments we made in there never could offset the amount that we owed. The prior service liability was when the WRS brought on people who were, put them on the system but had never paid in. And so the districts had to pay, the cities and the counties had to pay for that liability. And back in 2004, we had a $23 million liability. And at that time, the amount that we were paying in WRS was barely keeping us at $23 million. And so the state allowed the cities and counties and school districts to borrow the money to pay off that debt. And at that time, we borrowed $22.7 million to pay that debt off to the Wisconsin retirement system. And at that time, districts were paying 8% interest on the amount. So there was no way to ever pay it off. And so by doing that, we're now paying off the debt where instead of 8%, we're at 1.5%. And there was an article in the paper today talking about some of the few cities and villages and school districts that never did the refinancing to pay it off. And I think it was a good story on, again, why they didn't do it and why they didn't do it to pay that off instead of continuing to keep paying interest. So it was something a lot of districts did back at that time, and again, it saved us a lot of money, and we refinanced it, that debt over the years, and right now we're at a 1.5% interest rate, so which is good to have.
Good for our taxpayers. Yeah.
I just want the public to know that the board, and particularly Alan, have been good stewards of the public money. It's a very big example. From where I sit, shame on those municipalities and districts that didn't refinance. I mean, we think it'd be pretty basic, but obviously it isn't. That's why Alan was on top of it, so thank you. First recommendation is that the transfer credit help desk clerical at the district office, 12 months at the wage of $21.41 per hour to executive assistant to the chief technology and information officer at the district office, 12 months at a salary of $52,000 plus, prorated to $19,000 plus, 2014-15 rates effective February 17th, 2014, as presented be approved.
Should be 50, huh? I was going to say.
I have a second.
Is there a second?
Oh, a second? Oh.
Would you like to amplify that?
This position comes as a result of some restructuring that I think you've been aware of that has been occurring in information technology. Claudette has been with the district for going on 20 years now. She's in the audience, and she has a wealth of experience in IT, as well as a bachelor's degree in business administration. Very well qualified.
Sandy?
Blackout,
Aye.
Franz,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Maloney,
Aye.
Jeffries, Wagner,
Aye.
Carried 7-0. Congratulations.
I think Diane Dersch is the most thrilled.
Big smile on her face.
The next recommendation is that the Director of Technology, Operations, and Infrastructure position and associated job description as presented be approved.
Second?
Yes, this is a position that comes as a result of a resignation that we have in IT. And it is an increase in responsibilities, again, due to some of the reorganization that Diane Dersch has been doing in information technology. And the pay rate will go up. I cannot precisely tell you what the rate of pay will be, because in information technology, we need to see the quality of the people applying and qualifications they bring, and to some extent, we have to be able to match the market. So we need to see what their current rates of pay are in the current position, and then try to match the salary or come up with a salary that's attractive to the candidate. So the rate of pay will not be listed precisely, but I would envision that it would be just over $100,000 if somebody came to the district with a wealth of experience. That would be the top of the scale. So it would move up probably one pay grade on our administrative scale, perhaps two, but I think there will be some additional responsibilities, as I said, and additional individuals reporting up to this individual.
Any questions? All right, Sandy?
Jeffries? Aye. Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
And that is all we have.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to, for the consent items.
So moved.
Second.
Sandy?
Yes.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Carried 7-0.
And just mention that we just approved the resignations or the retirement.
Retirement.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, two of our members,
Yes.
You should bring them up and cheer.
and Alan Wagner. So, 16.
Yes.
Yes. They have both served our district exceptionally well, yeah.
Extremely well, and as we talked about it this morning, I told them, I don't want to see you resurfacing in the neighborhood at another district. I said they retire for about half an hour, and then they're out there. They are such high-quality people, and they carry such history of the district and have been invaluable in their service to students and families, and big shoes, big shoes. So, but we're happy for it.
All right, we do have a closed session, so I'll read that motion. Special board meeting closed session has been scheduled for Monday, February 16th, immediately following the adjournment of the regular board meeting. Pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations, to wit, personnel matters. Pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically to wit, potential contracts, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, to wit, potential litigation matters. The meeting will begin in open session to consider the appropriate motion for a closed session so provided by law.
So moved.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney? Aye. Warren?
Aye.
Franz? Aye. Jeffries? Aye. Becker?
Aye.
Wagner?
Carried 7-0. We'll meet across the hall.
What's your tomorrow?
For more information or to obtain copies of this program, contact CESA 7 Interactive Learning Services at 920-465-5218.